All right, so we're going to review things that are going to be on your Chapter 3 test. So you have your quizzes back, and those corrections are due tomorrow. There'll be a separate quiz grade for that. Okay, so in example 1, we're going to solve equations. The first one, go ahead and just solve the first one. -2 times 3x plus 6 equals 24. All right, we have 2 up on the screen. We'll start with the first one, check it, and then we'll work the second one. The thing we're going to do is distribute. -2 times 3x is -6x. Did you get that? -2 times 6 is -12. All right, now I have my two-step equation. I add 12 to both sides. -6x equals 36. Divide both sides by -6. X equals -6. All right, who got it? Who got it? Okay, so give yourself a little point on the top of your boards. All right, second problem. Okay, so I try to strategically choose questions that sometimes we see, different types of errors. All right, so let's see who can simplify this equation correctly and just solve for x. So one of the common pitfalls that we see here is we get confused on which term is negative. So out of these three terms, which term is negative? 10. 10 is negative. So when I'm combining 8x and 2x, that's 10x. 2x is positive. All right, the negative is attached to the 10. So now I have 10x minus 10 equals 40. Here's another pitfall. These are not like terms. These do not cancel out. One has an x, one is a number. But what I can do is I can solve for x. What do I do first to solve for x? Add 10 to both sides. Okay, 10x equals 50. Now divide both sides by 10, x equals 5. All right, who got it right? Okay, good. All right, give yourself a point. All right, now we have equations like this one and this one. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and simplify both of them using the distributive property, and then we're going to talk about their unique solutions. The distributive property to simplify the first one, and we get 14p plus 7 equals 14p plus 7. On the second one, we get 8v plus 2 equals 8v plus what? 4. Plus 4. We have to fully distribute. And you can expect the one on your test to be pretty close to. Like, there's just going to be one number that's a little different. So we can see between the two of them, the first one is identical. Meaning, if I try to get my variable on both sides, or that's on both sides to one side, what happens when I subtract my 14p? 0. It's going to be 0, right? But is it true that 7 equals 7? Yes. So what it's saying here is since those numbers will equal, and you can view it this way too. If I plug in a number here for p, and I plug it in here, both sides are still going to be equal. Say I plug in 2. Well, yeah, 14 times 2 plus 7 is 35. It's going to be 35 on the other side. So because they are identical, my answer is all numbers. All numbers. Okay? Because they're identical expressions. In the second problem, they are not identical expressions because when my 8v's cancel, 2 does not equal 4. All right? So because of that, I would say that there is no solution to the second problem. So here's what happens, guys. When the variables cancel, we have to look at what's left. If it equals, then all real numbers are a solution. If it doesn't equal, then there is no solution. You can count on one or even both of these to be on your test tomorrow. Okay, so there's going to be one of those exception problems on your test tomorrow, and you'll just need to be able to identify that problem. You also have a problem on your test where it asks you to find the perimeter of the square. So we saw this in one of our previous quizzes. I think it might have even been on your last test, where we need to find the perimeter of the square. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a minute to get started on it. You might remember how to do it, and then we'll kind of go through some leading questions and work through this review. So to start off, what do we know about the sides of a square?
They're all equal.
That they're all equal. So even though these expressions look different, we know that once we have the value for x and we plug it in, the sides are going to be the same. So because we know that all the sides are equal, we can set these sides equal to each other. We can set them equal to each other. All right, all sides of a square are equal, so that means that 4x has to equal 36 minus 5x. So now solve for x. So we clearly see that we have variables on both sides of the equation, right? So which one do I move? Do I move 4x or negative 5x? I move negative 5x over, and I get 9x equals 36. Divide both sides by 9, x equals 4. But this is not my answer. What do I do with this number, Lexi?
Put it in where x is?
Yes. Plug it in back into the side value to find the true side value. So 4 times 4 is what? 16. We can even test it on the other one. 36 minus what's 5 times 4? 20. Guess what? Also 16. So I now have an established side value. I can plug it in to my perimeter formula. P equals 4s, P equals 4 times 16, and P equals 64. You could say units. I'm not necessarily worried about the label. These won't necessarily have like units of measurement like centimeters and inches. We're really just focused on the process to get to perimeter. All right, who got it right? 64? Okay. All right, so you're going to have one of those on your test. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up for equations. Now let's shift gears over to inequalities. All right, with inequalities, it's really nothing new, but again, I tried to pick problems where I'm seeing some pitfalls and some mistakes to try to kind of clear some of those up. So I want you to start with the first problem, 15 is less than negative 5x. Solve it and graph it. Solve and graph. Okay, so what do I do to both sides?
Divide by negative 5.
Divide both sides by negative 5. Okay, now, wait a second. Why did I flip my inequality?
Because you divided.
Because I divided by a negative, more specifically because a negative was attached to my variable. Okay? All right, so now x is, wait, how do I read this? X is, less than negative 3. So that's another area where we see a mistake happen is we try to read that as a greater than sign. But remember, this means that all numbers must be less than negative 3 in order to make the inequality true. All right, so that's what it's saying. So the arrow needs to go left. Go ahead and use distributive property to solve the second one now. All right, so we distribute 4x plus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 56. I subtract 8 both sides. 4x is greater than or equal to negative 64. All right, and now I divide both sides by 4. Is this the correct answer?
Yes.
Is my sign correct though?
Yes.
But I divided by a negative.
But it's not attached to the variable.
But it wasn't attached to the variable. So, just because I divide by a negative doesn't mean I reverse my inequality. That's another, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, but again, I chose this because I'm seeing this mistake happen every once in a while. So, just to clarify, the negative has to be attached to the variable. All right, so now in the number line, close dot on negative 16, and again, we read the variable first, arrow going right. Okay? All right, so now let's make them a little tougher. Okay, you have now what we want to call, actually, hold on one sec. Nope, I need to go back to two-step inequalities. Okay, so here we go. All right, so with a two-step inequality, we have 3m minus 8 is greater than negative 30 plus 5m. All right, so you had two problems like this on your quiz yesterday where it was a multi-step inequality. That's like from section 3.6. So let's go ahead and solve for m and graph our solution. All right, so what do we do first? What do we do first? What's the very first thing we want to do?
Subtract 3.
Find the smaller value of the two variables. That's 3m. So we subtract 3m over to the right side. And if we're moving our variable over to the right side, what are we going to do with 30?
Move it to the left.
Yep, we're going to add 30 over to the left. Okay, so we took care of that. Those cancel. We have 22 is now greater than 2m. Divide both sides by 2. Yes. But how are we going to read it for our graph?
M is less than 11.
Yes, so 11, 10, and 12. Less than. All numbers must be less than 11 to be a solution. All right, 2 of those on your test tomorrow, the multi-step inequalities. Any questions? Any questions on those? Okay, so that's it for inequalities. Now let's do, our scenarios. Okay, you have a section like this on your test tomorrow. I'm finding that this is kind of like all or nothing for students. Either they get them all, or they get them all right, or they get them all wrong. Okay, so I'm going to try to teach you again the process of setting up these scenarios. And we always start with what?
A number.
The variable. The variable. We always start with the variable. So I'm still seeing students writing the variable second or after the inequality. And you may get it right, but it is much more confusing that way. So I would suggest that you write the variable first. Go ahead and try number 1. Go ahead and try number 1. So what variable did you choose for chores?
C.
C for chores, that's one I did too. So C for chores, and then 10 is the value. 10 is, the cutoff value. So now let me ask you this. Is the sentence saying that you're going to have more than 10 chores, less than 10 chores? Okay, so if it's at most 10, 10 is the top, 10 is the most. So the chores that you could possibly have are going to be less than or equal to 10. 2 ways you can remember this. You can memorize that at most means less than or equal to every time without fail. So you see at most, you know less than or equal to. However, the memorization strategy is not the best way, in my opinion. The best way, in my opinion, is to just ask yourself if it makes sense. Does it make sense? If I say at most 10 chores, you know what that means, right? That means you're not going to have more than 10. So the chores you do have, the variable, the chores you do have will be less than or equal to 10. They won't be over that. Go ahead and try the second one. Truck scale can measure weight up to 1,000 pounds. Variable did you choose?
W.
W for weight, me too. 1,000 is my benchmark. So is it saying the weight can be less than 1,000 pounds be okay? Greater than 1,000? What do you think?
Less than.
It is less than, but can it be 1,000? Yes. So it's equal to. You want to make at least an 80B on your science test. Try that one. Remember, guys, we're writing our variable first. Okay? So this is what we're comparing. The solutions can be less than 1,000, equal to 1,000. Yes, that's true. All right, so what variable did you use?
T.
T for test, G for grade. I did G for grade. Okay, and 80 is the cutoff. So if you want to make at least an 80 on your test, do you want your grade to be greater than 80 or less than 80?
Greater.
It's greater than 80. Do you see how we're doing that, guys? Okay, you want your grade to be greater than 80 if you want at least an 80, but can it be an 80?
Yes.
Yes, it can. It's equal to. All right, children over the age of 12 are considered teenagers. All right, so what variable?
C.
C for children, A for age, T for teenagers. Okay, the age is being compared to 12. So do you need to be greater than 12 to be a teenager? Less than what?
Greater.
Greater than 12. Can you be 12 and be a teenager? No, you can't. So it's only greater than. All right. So guys, that's just how we have to go about it. All right. Variable first, write our number, and then ask ourselves, okay, to make this inequality true, all of my solutions, are they going to be greater than, less than, and can they be equal to? All right, we have a word problem. You had 2 word problems on your quiz yesterday. One was an inequality, the other one was an equation. We have to remember that inequalities are going to be comparisons, and there will be some type of a key word in there that in the problem that will indicate to us that it's an inequality. With equations, it'll say things like, you and your friends spent the same amount of money. Okay, well, if you spent the same amount of money, that's equal. Okay, so what I want you to do is go ahead and try to set this up. All right, this problem is very similar to number 15 from your quiz yesterday. Just changed up some of the values and examples, so I'm not doing the exact same problem. But I want to go over some of the process to solve this. This is like number 34 from your homework last night, too. All right, that I saw, still making some mistakes on here. So we're going to try to work through some of that. So the first thing we have to figure out is it an equation or an inequality? It's an inequality. How do you know that? Less than. I'm forming a comparison between buying the machine and making it myself or just ordering the pizza from Papa John's and avoiding the hassle of cooking, right? Okay, so I have 2 options here. Option 1, make your own. That's MYO, I just abbreviated, make your own. So what costs are involved if I want to make my own pizza? $100 plus $3 per pizza. Do I know how many pizzas I'm going to make? No. I don't know how many pizzas I need to make. So there's my variable, plus 3p. I want you to form the expression that would go with ordering from Papa John's. Yeah, PJ, Papa John's. Okay. How would we form that? What would it be? 7p, $7 per pizza. Again, I don't know how many pizzas I need to order in order to start tipping the scale in favor of, basically that it was worth it to buy my machine. So here's how I know how to set it up. I want which one to be less, the make your own or the Papa John's? No, I want the make your own to actually cost me less money. Okay, so 100 plus 3p needs to be greater than 7p or less than 7p? Less than 7p. To make my own, I want it to be less than ordering from Papa John's. Less than. All right, now solve your inequality. What do I do first to solve for this inequality?
Minus the 3p.
You've got to get your variable on one side, so subtract 3p. And now it says, how do I read this answer?
P is
Less than. Yeah.
What? Here's the interpretation part. This is the important part. What does this mean? What does this mean? P is greater than 25. What does that mean?
Papa John's is constant.
What does that mean, guys?
That if you make 25 pizzas with a pizza oven, it'll be
What was the whole goal in solving this inequality? How many do I have to make in order for the cost of the machine to be less than, in ingredients, to be less than ordering pizza from Papa John's. So I have to make more than 25 pizzas. You've got to be able to make that connection. I have to make more than 25 pizzas in order for my actual investment to start paying off and save me some money. All right, so let's think about this practically. Do you think it was worth it to buy that pizza machine?
No.
How long do you think it's going to take you to make 25 pizzas? I mean, time-wise, and goodness, I mean, we eat pizza maybe once a week, so that's going to take, goodness, 6 months to eat that much pizza, right? So, and then it's just the convenience factor, right? I can just call Papa John's and they send it to my house 30 minutes later. I don't have to worry about anything. So some people would say, man, it's going to take me 26 pizzas to make my money back. That pizza machine is not worth buying. So you see, guys, we weigh these types of, investment factors when we're thinking about making purchases. At what point am I going to see a rate of return? This is what we call a rate of return. All right? You have one of these on your test tomorrow. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to look pretty familiar to you. All right? So you need to know how to set these up. If you understand that, that should cover most of everything you need to know for your test tomorrow.